Stupid NPC in the chat says, has Fatshark been kicked out of Sharkbite? And I think that's a good transition into the next story that we have up. A lot of people have been talking about Fatshark, being totally silent. We've commented on it before. They stopped their 2-week updates that they promised, right, for Sharkbite. And then
that didn't go on for very long, did it? There were like 3 or maybe 4 of those.
Went to the Scout HD, and then it was silence. However, Redcat has done a virtual summit where they get on and talk to their investors about, what's going on and where their plans are and what's going to happen with all their systems. And I thought this was super interesting because basically Fatshark was brought up a lot in this as a core piece of the functionality. If you go down to that slide that I have down there, that bottom imager link, you can kind of get an idea of where they put Fatshark in the company.
This is a slide from a Redcat presentation. As a publicly traded company, Redcat does these public presentations. Was this an investor call, or was this just a summit?
It was like they called it a virtual summit. It's just like a place where, they're kind of just talking about a bunch of different things with the companies.
Okay.
But in their summary here of drone services, they list Fatshark as not as a goggle, right? They're listing Fatshark as a downlink technology that enables low latency telemetry technologies for FPV piloted flights. And you'll find that in a lot of these conversations where he talks, they're not talking about Fatshark as just a goggle company. They're talking about Fatshark as a goggle company with a high-speed downlink video link, which I think is interesting. One of the things they say in the quotes here is that he says, as a Fatshark, in response to talking about Fatshark, they're going through a great product refresh from analog to digital. And then he was talking about stuff. He says, basically, in the past, when they've done a product refresh, they've been as high as $19 million for the year, like their revenue. And previously they were doing $7 million. So it could be a big push for Fatshark. This is kind of interesting. He says, we're not suggesting that's going to happen with the new digital goggle. Presumably he's talking about the Scout HD, because he says, we're just starting to get the digital goggle out there. We'll hopefully have a bunch for Christmas, but we don't think we'll have enough. What's interesting is all that revenue in these goggles that I've been talking about with Fatshark have mostly been based on racing and freestyle drones. The entire Skypersonic inspection system has been built on that platform. And we have other commercial partners that are now using the Fatshark goggle system, and you're going to continue to see us embedded into commercial applications with other vendors. So I think that's interesting because the way he talks about, Fatshark platform and their goggles, it's not just the goggle SKUs. It's HDZero as a technology in the Fatshark goggle.
Right. So when we think about, we saw this big splash with Sharkbite, and Fatshark was seen as, I think Fatshark was driving it in a way. In fact, I got the impression that Fatshark was actually pushing HDZero to improve the quality and reliability of the VTX, and that some of the delays in the release of the first VTX were Fatshark pushing back on HDZero to say, no, it's not ready yet. I don't have sources on that, but that was my impression from some conversations that I had. But then it very quickly seemed to shift where it felt like, and this is based on some statements on Facebook from Carl Zhao, the owner of HDZero, and other just sort of reading the tea leaves. It seemed to shift to a situation where HDZero seemed a little bit impatient with Fatshark, and HDZero started putting out things like the RunCam camera and the Race VTX. We started seeing HDZero stuff on HDZero's website, and nothing on Fatshark's. And it's like, oh, did the question was, did HDZero sort of take the lead, or did Fatshark kind of went, I'm not done with this,
Right.
And it seems like it's not exactly that Fatshark is done with this. It's just that Fatshark is sort of moving in a different direction and at a different speed than HDZero wants to be.
Yes, I 100% agree. I think they talk about a lot of commercial partners here, and while they do talk about a high revenue for the consumer side, it seems certainly that their goal here is to push this into the rest of Redcat and to be their foundation for their commercial stuff, for their remote viewing of different locations and stuff. It seems like Redcat is going to be Teal plus remote inspections, and remote inspections will be Skypersonic plus Redcat plus all their other little commercial partners in there. So
yeah. Rick's FPV, I will read the super chats at the end of the stream. During the news, we usually don't interrupt the stream for super chats, but I do want to let you know I will be getting to that. It really raises a question, Blunty, and I don't think we can answer this question, but I think we have to acknowledge it. Would the typical FPV pilot rather they have whatever HDZero is doing or whatever Fatshark is doing? And I think the answer is obviously they're happier to have the products that because Fatshark might make the argument, well, we would rather spend longer developing these products and have better customer service and more research. We think HDZero is moving too fast. Like, I'm just speculating here as to why they might not have released these products as quickly as HDZero has released them. But I think most people are thrilled with the improvements that have been made, and apparently the quality has been adequate. I haven't heard any complaints. So then we have to ask, is Fatshark doing what is good for their customers, or are they being kind of sucked into the Redcat corporate structure and serving a different master, if you will?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I think if you look at how they've responded to like customer feedback and, you know, where, like we talked about, like where the camera was when the system came out versus where the system is now with just a few months, you know, of HDZero pushing really hard and getting stuff made and talking to vendors. And, you know, Carl's paying for stuff out of his pocket to get runs of cameras made that are selling out instantly, you know, because he's aware of what the system is worth. So,
right. Yeah.
I think we wouldn't be like, there wouldn't be people running like at Champs. There wouldn't have been people running HDZero. Like, we wouldn't have seen people in those heats, like without HDZero.
Why
it wouldn't have ever happened with Fatshark.
That's the thing. Like, I don't understand why HDZero seems more motivated to get the system into the hands of people like Evan Turner than Fatshark.
Carl wants to sell chipsets. I think that's like obviously like right. The more
does Fatshark not want to sell? Does Fatshark not want to sell VTXs and VRXs?
Well, yeah, but if they don't own the chipset, to me, like there's less margin there for them, right? So, like, I don't know. They talked about the goggles are 26% margin. Who knows what the actual, the actual other hardware is? But like, if Carl owns the ICs and they have to build into that, there's like a core cost there. I don't know. That's where my head goes. Is like, because they don't own the ICs, it's not their system. They're not like hardcore pushing it. But then you look at Redcat's position, and Redcat's position is, hey, we're going to base a bunch of our back end of this remote inspection stuff on this IC that we don't own. So it's like both sides of it to me. Like, if that's that important, why don't you also push the consumer side? Or are you just so busy you can't think about it?
It hasn't ever seemed like Fatshark is that interested in, I want to word this carefully. Fatshark has never felt hungry to me. Fatshark has always felt like we make the best and we will give it to you and you will want it more than we. Fatshark is the pretty girl who doesn't need you. You know what I mean? Sorry, pretty girls. No offense. And I feel like they are in a weird position with DJI out there, and now HDZero, and there's this sort of shift to digital where what they do is no longer as desirable. And suddenly, I mean, they probably were hungry at the beginning when they established themselves, and then they reached a position of prominence, and it feels like HDZero is hungry in a way that Fatshark isn't, and is doing things to succeed. And I feel like that hunger is a really important component. Yeah.
Maybe, like you said, maybe they feel safe in the umbrella of Redcat now that they've got all this money behind them. So,
well, it's not. I mean but that means that they're going to make products for Redcat, not for FPV pilots. They're going to make inspection systems, and they're not going to care about selling goggles or VTXs. I just go back to what a amazing coup, what an amazing triumph it is that my God, if this was a 90s movie, that the underdog Carl Zhao got his VTX into the hands of Evan Turner, who went on to win multi-GP Nats running his gear. What a triumph, what a come from behind, what an amazing victory that is. And I just think, why didn't Fatshark do that?
Yeah.
And it says something that HDZero did and Fatshark didn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway.
It takes somebody like Carl. It takes somebody, like you said, with the hunger to push that stuff and make it happen. So.
Yeah. Anyway,
right.
there you go. Officially speaking, Fatshark is not dead.
Yeah.
And Fatshark is still invested in HDZero.